editing for our portraits for Photography1-2. First thing in Bridge, I'm going to make a copy of my photo. So I'm just going to right click on it or press Control and click and make a duplicate copy of my original. So if I mess up, I can always throw away my copy and then make a new copy from my original. I'm going to right click on my photo, open it into Camera Raw. In Camera Raw, we have some newer options from the current updates, and so I'm just going to show you how this works. So you can do your global adjustments for your photo. Obviously, maybe adjusting your exposure, you play with your color temperature, make sure your subject looks nice. You could add some vibrance. But what I'm more interested in how we can actually make it a nice portrait. So what I'm going to recommend are a couple things. You could crop your photo like this, so it's like a portrait, so your subject is nice, kind of center in the frame. Typically putting the eyes in the upper rule third is a good choice, but it's not mandatory. What I'm going to do is show you the new features with the mask function. So where the little kind of dotted circle on the right hand side below the spot healing brush, there is a masking feature. Click on that, and there's a new option called Select Subject from a new mask. So I'm going to click on that. It's going to analyze my photo, and then it's going to give me a mask on my subject. If it didn't guess correctly, which sometimes it won't, you can add and subtract to it. So if you want, you could do like a subtract brush. You can adjust the size of your brush, and you can paint away some of your mask depending on how well of a job it did. And so you can add and subtract your mask as needed. If you kind of scroll down on this bar here, what I'm going to do is actually go down to the texture slider. I'm going to zoom in a little bit so you can see the skin a little better. And then I'm going to do a negative texture. So if I drag it to the right, it's going to increase the texture, and to the left, it's going to soften the surface texture. So in a portrait, I would say somewhere between 15 to 30 is a good point. You don't want it too much or it looks like plastic. Same with the clarity. If I drag it to the right, it's going to bring out bigger details. If I drag it to the left, it will soften some details. So I'm going to keep it around like the 20s, so that way it's not super, super soft, but it does kind of smooth everything out. Here's a before and after. You can kind of see the difference between the skin. And then what I would recommend is going to the spot healing brush. It says here. There are some different ones now. So there's a content aware remove, there's a healing brush, and a clone. So the content aware remove is going to do its best guess to kind of figure out what you're trying to remove. So if there's like blemishes, again, you can zoom in by pressing Command plus to zoom in, or you can zoom in and out over here. And so if you click on an object, it'll do its best guess to kind of figure out what you're trying to remove. If you need to be more specific, there's the healing brush. So if you kind of paint an area, it's going to heal it. If you click Show Overlay, it's going to show you where it gathered the information from. So you can move where it's guessing from. So if it kind of guesses wrong, you can kind of help it out. So let's maybe get rid of this kind of scar here. And you can kind of see where it's healing from. And again, you can always move where it's healing from to a better location if it didn't kind of guess right. And so you could try to do some spot healing. If you want to do a direct clone and kind of like soften things, so maybe, I want to get rid of some of this hair here. So I'm just going to, let's actually drag it from here. And then you can bring the opacity down so it'll blend it. You can also feather it so it's like a softer edge. And so that way you can kind of like lightly remove some stuff. Let's maybe bring the opacity up. So you can kind of see what it's doing if I bring the opacity up, right? So those are kind of some options for healing. You can click on the show overlay part and that goes away. So this part, I'm just gonna heal this part again. There we go. Okay. And so then what I always recommend for a portrait is you want your subject to stand out. So you can obviously adjust your exposure when you go back to these top adjustments. But what I'm going to do is add a vignette and kind of darken the edges and kind of feather that out. And so that way, this is my before and after. I'm kind of lightening the subject. I'm softening the texture and the clarity of the subject. I'm kind of darkening around them so then the face and the head stands out because they're the key subject. Last thing I need to do is to open this into Photoshop. So I'm going to open that into Photoshop. Like so. Should open up. There it is now. So I'm going to try it again. If you did update your camera raw, if you click on this bar here and it says 16 bits, it's not going to let you save as a JPEG in Photoshop. So what you want to do is actually switch this to 8-bit and then click OK. And then it should let you save as a JPEG. So I'm going to open this into Photoshop. Hopefully it opens this time. There we go. And then I'm just going to go File, Save. It's already a copy. It's already a JPEG. So just make sure the format says JPEG. Save it in the right folder. I'm going to save over the copied version and then hit OK on my quality. So then if I go back to Bridge, here's my before and after. So you can kind of see what I did here. You know, if I kind of zoom in, you know, especially like with the skin, you can kind of see the difference between the two. So cool. All right, thanks for paying attention.